Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Truth to Trail. Long time no see. So back in March of 2022, I had the awesome opportunity to go with a friend to Road to the Horse. If you've never heard of that before, Road to the Horse, there's two different competitions, but the one that we went to is in Lexington, Kentucky. And Road to the Horse is a 3-day colt starting competition where some of the best horse trainers from around the world come in and compete 3 days with an unbroke colt, train it, and then do a obstacle competition on the last day. That was a really fun event, and I feel like I learned a lot of different things from watching the trainers, the way they approach the horses, the way they handled the horses, and then also the way that they handled the crowd and the pressure. It was kind of a unique thing to watch. The other really cool opportunity that I got to go see this year was in kind of more locally in Houstontown, Pennsylvania. I got to go to Clark Farms, and I got to watch their 3-day colt starting competition where they have some trainers that they select that come in and have sort of the same setup where they each get an unbroke colt, train it for a couple days, and then compete in an obstacle challenge. That was also just really fun. I feel like I got to know some horse trainers, and afterwards I got to ask a lot of questions and learn some more things. As we're discussing colt starting, it's kind of interesting to know that actually there was some colt starting that happened in the Bible, and I know you're thinking to yourself, what? That sounds kind of odd, but actually there is. And we're going to start in Matthew chapter 21. So Matthew chapter 21, and we're going to be reading verses 1 all the way through 11. And here's what it says. Now, when they drew near to Jerusalem and came to Bethphage, to the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, Go into the village in front of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, The Lord needs them, and he will send them at once. This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, saying, Say to the daughter of Zion, Behold, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden. Then the disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt, and they put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. Most of the crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from trees and spread them on the road. And the crowds that went before him, that followed him, were shouting, Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest! And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up, saying, Who is this? And the crowd said, This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee. So there's a lot that we could take away from this passage, but really we're watching Jesus coming into Jerusalem, announcing kind of his kingship as he's coming into Jerusalem. He's the promised King of the Jews. And how does he come into Jerusalem? He's coming into Jerusalem on a donkey colt, which fulfills a prophecy even that's mentioned here. Behold, your king is coming to you, humble, mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal, a beast of burden. The choice of a donkey is very unique, as kings of that day, if you want to look powerful, you wanted to look strong, you came riding in on a horse. And the other thing that kings would do is if kings would come into a city and they meant to start war, they would come riding on a horse. Jesus chose a donkey. And a donkey, when a king would come riding in on one of them, symbolized peace. So Jesus was coming in peace into Jerusalem. There's another account of the same thing that happened, but it's in Mark's perspective. So we're going to go over to Mark chapter 11. And in Mark chapter 11, we're going to be reading verses 1 all the way through 10. So I'm going to start there. Mark 11, 1 through 10. Now when they drew near to Jerusalem, to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 of the disciples and said to them, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately as you enter, you will find a colt tied on which no one has ever sat. Untie it and bring it. If anyone says to you, 'Why are you doing this?' say, 'The Lord has need of it, and will send it back here immediately.'" And they went away and found a colt tied at a door outside in the street. And they untied it. And some of those standing there said to them, "What are you doing untying the colt?" And they told them what Jesus had said, and they let them go. And they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks on it, and he sat on it. And many spread their cloaks on the road. Others spread leafy branches that they had cut from the fields. And those who went before and those who followed were shouting, "Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest." And he entered Jerusalem and went into the temple. And when he had looked around at everything as it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. So here we see again the same account that's from Mark's perspective now. And he writes, one of the things that I underlined that I thought was really unique is he says, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately as you enter, you will find a colt tied." And right here it says, "on which no one has ever sat." And then he continues to sit on the colt and ride it down through Jerusalem. I think that to me speaks volumes, and it should to us also as horse trainers. You know, after watching that colt starting competition, both of those colt starting competitions, it takes a lot of time and energy and understanding and communication and trust to finally get to a point where you can climb up on that colt. And then, even then, you're usually in a controlled environment till you are safe enough to finally maybe go out of an arena or out of a round pen or out of wherever you started. And then maybe if you take a couple more months, you could feel comfortable enough to finally ride through a crowd or in a parade. But here, a colt that no one has ever sat, Jesus sat upon and rode into Jerusalem. A city full of people shouting, laying things on the road, and yet the colt carries Jesus into Jerusalem. I love that Jesus chose the donkey as a symbol of peace, and then the donkey is also showing how he has peace. He knew that Jesus was someone he could trust. Horses, we know, are animals of prey. So to have something jump onto their back is very unnatural. You know, it's their sensitive, dangerous part. So to have that donkey know that Jesus was someone who could go ahead and sit, he knew Jesus was someone of peace, someone to be trusted, someone that he could show his most vulnerable parts to and say, "You are safe. You are something I can trust." And that is the same thing Jesus is offering to us. He is offering through his sacrifice on the cross. He's offering salvation from our sin. He is offering so much more than just a place in heaven someday for us. He is saying, "Let me into the most vulnerable parts of you, and I will bring you peace. I'll bring you joy. I'll bring you hope. I have all these things to bring to you if you trust me." So I want to close with this last verse. "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and he shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace." I invite you to reach out and to get to know the Wonderful Counselor of Jesus, the Mighty God, our Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. He is offering to take the ugly parts of you, the vulnerable parts of you, the fearful parts of you, and to bring peace, to bring joy, to bring hope, bring you all of those things. So,